The emergency ward doors slammed open. Blood-soaked gurneys rolled in fast. Nurses scattered. Doctors shouted orders. But the new orderly, in pale blue scrubs, didn't run. She stood perfectly still, eyes scanning the chaos like a predator reading a battlefield. Her hand moved to her pocket. Inside was a badge no one had ever seen. A badge that could end careers, or save lives. Tonight, the hospital would learn what happens when someone mistakes a shadow for a ghost. And the real question wasn't who she was. It was who had sent her. Her name tag read Sarah Mitchell, orderly. She'd been at Memorial Hospital for 3 weeks. Nobody noticed her. Nobody asked questions. That's exactly how she wanted it. The night shift was always the same. Mop floors. Restock supplies. Stay invisible. But Sarah's eyes never stopped moving. She mapped every exit. Memorized every face. Counted security cameras. Old habits from a life she'd left behind, or so everyone thought. Dr. Marcus Webb didn't even look at her when he barked orders. You. Coffee. Black. Now. He was chief of emergency medicine. Arrogant, dismissive, he treated orderlies like furniture. Sarah nodded. Yes, sir. She walked to the break room. Her movements were too smooth. Too controlled. The kind of efficiency that came from years of training most people would never understand in the corner. Nurse Kelly Chen watched her. Kelly was different. Observant. You're new, Kelly said. But you don't move like someone new. Sarah smiled. Warm, disarming, just trying to learn the ropes. Kelly didn't look convinced. The hospital intercom crackled. Code black. I repeat, code black. All personnel to emergency stations. Sarah's smile vanished. Code black meant armed intruder. Active threat. The kind of situation that turned hospitals into war zones. Dr. Webb's face went pale. Lock down the wards. Get security. But Sarah was already moving. Not toward safety. Toward the threat. Where are you going? Kelly called after her. Sarah didn't answer. Her hand slipped into her pocket. Fingers brushed against cold metal. The badge. The one that carried a rank higher than anyone in this building could. Imagine. She'd hoped she wouldn't need it tonight. She was wrong. The emergency entrance exploded with noise. 3 armed men burst through the doors. Black tactical gear. Automatic weapons. They weren't here for robbery. This was something bigger. Everybody down. The lead man shouted. Now, patients screamed. Staff dropped to the floor. Dr. Webb froze like a statue. But Sarah kept walking. Calm, steady. Like she was taking a Sunday stroll. I said down. The gunman swung his weapon toward her. Sarah stopped. Raised her hands slowly. You don't want to do this, she said. Her voice was different now. Colder, sharper. The voice of someone who'd stared down worse threats than this. The gunman laughed. What's some cleaning lady gonna do? Sarah's eyes locked onto his. Walk away. Right now? Last chance. He didn't know it yet. But he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. Behind the reception desk, Kelly watched in horror. This wasn't the quiet orderly who'd served coffee an hour ago. This was someone else entirely. Someone dangerous. The gunman raised his weapon. Sarah moved. What happened next would change everything. If you want to see what happens when a shadow steps into the light, make sure you're subscribed. Because this story is just beginning. And trust me, you won't believe where it goes. The gunman's finger tightened on the trigger. But Sarah was already inside his range. Her hand shot out. Precision, speed, muscle memory from 1,000 training sessions. She struck his wrist. The weapon clattered to the floor. His eyes went wide. What the Sarah swept his legs. He crashed down hard. She had him in a control hold before his backup could react. Professional. Textbook. Exactly the kind of move that shouldn't come from an orderly. Drop her. The second gunman screamed, but Sarah was using the first man as a shield now. Her voice cut through the chaos. Federal agent. Stand down now. The words hung in the air like a grenade. Dr. Webb's jaw dropped. Kelly's hands covered her mouth. The entire emergency ward went silent except for the ragged breathing of the man on the floor. The second gunman hesitated. "You're lying." Sarah's eyes were ice. "Try me." Outside, the sound of sirens grew louder, closer. The cavalry was coming, but Sarah knew the truth. By the time they arrived, this would already be over. One way or another, the second gunman's weapon shook in his hands. Sweat ran down his face. He was young, maybe not a professional. Sarah could see it in his stance. In the way his finger trembled on the trigger. "Put it down," Sarah said quietly. "Nobody else needs to get hurt." But the third gunman had circled around. He was older, smarter. His weapon was already aimed at Sarah's head. "Release him, or I paint the walls with you." Sarah calculated angles. Distance, response time, 3 hostiles. Dozens of civilians in the crossfire. The math wasn't good, even for her. But she'd been in worse situations, places where the math was impossible. And she'd walked out alive every time. "Listen to me very carefully," Sarah said. Her voice carried authority that made even Dr. Webb stand straighter. "In 30 seconds, this building will be surrounded by federal agents. In 60 seconds, tactical units will breach every entrance. You have one choice. Surrender now. Walk out of here alive." The older gunman laughed. "Nice bluff, lady." "It's not a bluff." Sarah's eyes never left his. "You triggered every silent alarm in the building. You're on camera. Your faces are already being run through databases. And trust me, the people coming for you don't negotiate." Kelly watched from behind the desk. She'd worked with Sarah for 3 weeks. Quiet Sarah, invisible Sarah, the woman who mopped floors and never complained. That woman was gone. In her place was someone Kelly couldn't begin to understand. The man under Sarah's control groaned. "She's not lying. I can hear the sirens." He was right. The wail of approaching vehicles echoed through the night. But Sarah knew something the gunman didn't. The cavalry wasn't coming for them. They were coming for her. Because when a deep cover operative breaks protocol, when someone with her clearance level reveals themselves, it triggers a response that makes a SWAT team look like mall security. Dr. Webb finally found his voice. You're really a federal agent?" Sarah didn't answer. Her focus stayed locked on the weapons. On the angles. On keeping everyone alive. The older gunman's radio crackled. A voice came through. Distorted. Urgent. "Abort. Get out now. Target is confirmed." His face went white. "What target?" "We're here for she's the target, you idiot." The voice screamed. "That's Colonel Sarah Mitchell. Get out now." The word colonel hit the room like a shockwave. Kelly's breath caught. Dr. Webb stumbled backward. Even the young gunman lowered his weapon slightly. "Colonel?" The older gunman whispered. "Army." Sarah's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Something cold and dangerous. Not Army. The older gunman's hand started to shake. Because if she wasn't Army, there were only a few other options, and all of them were worse. "JSOC," Sarah said quietly. "Joint Special Operations Command. And the people I used to work with don't like it when someone threatens one of their own." The radio crackled again. Vehicle approaching. Black Suburban. Government plates. "Get out." But it was too late. The emergency entrance doors opened. Not violently, smoothly, controlled. A man stepped inside. Suit, earpiece. The kind of presence that made rooms go silent. He held up a badge. "Special Agent Rodriguez, FBI. Weapons on the ground. Now." The gunmen looked at each other. The older one's weapons started to lower, but the young one panicked. His finger tightened on the trigger. Sarah saw it happening. Saw the fear override his training. She had maybe half a second. She shoved the man she was holding away, hard, threw herself toward the young gunman. Her body moved on pure instinct. Years of muscle memory taking over, the shot rang out. Deafening in the confined space. Patients screamed. Staff ducked. Kelly watched in horror as Sarah crashed into the young gunman. They went down together in a tangle of limbs. For a moment, everything stopped. No one breathed. The smell of gunpowder hung in the air like a curse. Then Sarah stood up. She was holding the weapon. The young gunman was face down, zip-tied. Professional restraint that had taken her exactly 3 seconds. Blood ran down her arm. The bullet had grazed her. Nothing serious. But the look in her eyes had changed. The careful control was gone. What replaced it was something primal. Something that made even Agent Rodriguez take a step back. "Secure them," Sarah said. Her voice was granite. "And someone tell me what 3 armed men were doing in my hospital." Dr. Webb's brain couldn't process the words. Her hospital? Who was this woman? Outside, more vehicles arrived. Not police. Not SWAT. Black SUVs with tinted windows. The kind that didn't have license plates you could trace. Kelly realized something terrifying. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than a simple armed intrusion. Much bigger, and Sarah Mitchell, the quiet orderly who mopped floors, was at the center of it all. FBI agents swarmed the emergency ward. Professional, efficient. They secured the gunman in under a minute. But their eyes kept flicking to Sarah, not with suspicion. With respect, Dr. Webb grabbed Agent Rodriguez's arm. "What the hell is going on? Who is she?" Rodriguez gently removed Webb's hand. "That's above your clearance level, Doctor. Clearance level. This is a hospital." "Not anymore." Rodriguez's voice was cold. "As of 10 minutes ago, this facility is under federal jurisdiction. I need you to evacuate all non-essential personnel. Now." Sarah wrapped a bandage around her arm. The wound was superficial. She'd had worse. Much worse. Kelly appeared beside her with gauze and antiseptic. Her hands shook as she worked. "You're really a colonel?" Kelly whispered. Sarah met her eyes. Was past tense? "I retired 2 years ago." "People like you don't retire," Kelly said softly. "Do they?" Sarah almost smiled. Almost smart girl. Outside, a Black Hawk helicopter descended onto the hospital's helipad. The rotor wash rattled windows, made the whole building shake. This wasn't standard FBI procedure. This was something else. Dr. Webb was having a breakdown. "A helicopter? On my hospital? This is insane. I'm calling the board. I'm calling the mayor." "You're going to be quiet." The voice came from the entrance. Deep, authoritative, the kind of voice that moved mountains. A woman walked in, 50s gray. Hair pulled back tight. Pentagon credentials hanging from her neck. 2 stars on her collar. Major General Patricia Brennan, Defense Intelligence Agency. The room went silent. Even Agent Rodriguez stood straighter. General Brennan's eyes found Sarah immediately. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Years of history passing between them in a glance. "Colonel Mitchell," Brennan said. "It's been a while." Sarah nodded. "General. Didn't expect to see you here. Didn't expect one of my best operatives to break 2 years of deep cover over 3 amateur gunmen." Brennan's voice was hard. But there was something else underneath. Concern. "We need to talk. Privately." Sarah gestured to the break room. They walked past stunned doctors and nurses. Kelly watched them go, her mind racing. "Colonel General. Deep cover." The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense? Dr. Webb turned to Rodriguez. "Someone needs to explain what's happening." Rodriguez pulled out a tablet. Typed quickly. Turned it toward Webb. On the screen was a heavily redacted file. But the header was clear. Mitchell. Sarah J. Colonel. JSOC. Classified. The photo showed a younger Sarah uniform. Medals. The kind of decorations that came from operations the public would never hear about. Webb's face went pale. "She's been here for 3 weeks. Cleaning floors. Taking orders from me. I called her sweetheart. I told her to get me coffee." Rodriguez almost smiled. "I'm sure she found that amusing." In the break room, Brennan closed the door. Activated a jamming device from her pocket, the kind that made recording impossible. When she spoke, her voice was quieter. More human, Sarah? What were you thinking? You're burned now. 2 years of cover? Gone. Sarah leaned against the wall. Suddenly she looked tired, older. They were going to hurt people, Patricia. Innocent people. What was I supposed to do? Your job was to observe, report, stay hidden. My job was to protect American lives. Sarah's voice hardened. That hasn't changed. Even if the uniform has? Brennan studied her. You know what this means? We'll have to extract you. Relocate you. New identity. New life. Again. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Who were they? The gunmen. They knew my name, my rank. Someone sent them. We're working on it. But Sarah, Brennan hesitated. There's something else. Those men weren't here to rob the hospital. They were here for you. The words hung in the air like poison. Sarah's expression didn't change, but her hands clenched. How many people know I'm here? Before tonight? Maybe 6. All of them with TSSCI clearance. All of them vetted personally by me. Then we have a leak. Or a traitor. Brennan's voice was ice. Someone gave up your location. Someone with access to the most classified database in the Defense Department. Outside, the emergency ward was being transformed. Federal agents set up equipment. Secured perimeters. Patients were being transferred to other facilities. Kelly found herself being questioned by a man who looked like he could break concrete with his hands. How long have you known Sarah Mitchell? 3 weeks. But I didn't know her. Not really. Has she done anything unusual? Met with anyone suspicious? Kelly thought about it. No, she was perfect. Too perfect. That's what made me notice her. The agent made notes. What do you mean, too perfect? She never complained. Never made mistakes. Never looked tired. It was like watching a machine pretend to be human. The agent nodded. That's good observation. You should consider a career in intelligence. Kelly laughed nervously. I just want to go back to being a nurse. I'm afraid that's not possible. Not after tonight. Kelly's smile faded. What do you mean? You've seen too much. No, too much. We'll need to monitor you. Possibly relocate you. For your own safety? The words hit Kelly like a punch. Her life, her career, her entire world had just been turned upside down. Because she'd worked with a woman who mopped floors. A woman who was so much more than she seemed. In the break room, Brennan's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. Her face went hard. We've got movement. 3 more vehicles approaching. Unknown occupants. This isn't over, Sarah. Sarah straightened. The exhaustion vanished from her eyes. In its place was something sharp. Deadly. Then we'd better be ready. We need to evacuate you now. No. Sarah's voice was final. There are still people in this building. Staff, patients, if someone's coming for me. I'm not leading them to innocence. Sarah. That's an order, General. Sarah's eyes were steel. My cover's blown anyway. Might as well use it. For a moment, Brennan looked like she might argue. Then she nodded. Just like old times. It's just like old times. Sarah agreed. They walked back into the emergency ward. Sarah's presence had changed. The quiet orderly was gone completely. In her place was a warrior. Kelly could see it in the way she moved, the way she scanned the room, the way other federal agents automatically deferred to her. Dr. Webb watched in disbelief. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Sarah turned to him. Doctor, I need you to evacuate all remaining patients. Use the north corridors. Stay away from windows. Can't just, that wasn't a request. Webb's mouth opened, closed. Something in Sarah's voice made arguing impossible. He started shouting orders to his staff. Agent Rodriguez approached Sarah. Colonel, we've identified the vehicles. Russian diplomatic plates. But the embassy says they're not theirs. Sarah's jaw tightened. Of course they do. How many occupants? Thermal imaging shows 12. Armed, professional. Sarah's voice was flat. Of course it's Russians. Kelly overheard. What do Russians want with you? Sarah looked at her. For a moment, something like regret flashed across her face. 3 years ago, I led an operation in Syria. We stopped a weapons transfer that would have changed the balance of power in the Middle East. Saved a lot of lives. Made a lot of enemies. And they found you, Kelly said quietly. After all this time, apparently, Sarah pulled out her phone, dialed a number from memory. When someone answered, she said only 2 words, broken arrow. The code for an operator in distress. The kind of call that mobilized resources most people didn't know existed, somewhere in the Virginia countryside. In a building with no windows and no official name, alarms started ringing, and the real storm was about to begin. The Russian vehicles stopped 2 blocks from the hospital. Thermal imaging showed occupants dismounting. They moved with precision. Military training. Sarah watched the monitor with cold calculation. They're not coming in loud, she said. They're going to infiltrate. Blend with evacuees. Get close before they strike. General Brennan stood beside her. Your call, Colonel. How do you want to play this? Sarah studied the layout. The hospital had 12 entrances. Too many to secure with their current personnel. The patients were still being evacuated through the north wing. That left them vulnerable. We need to funnel them, Sarah said. Force them to come through choke points we control. Lock down all entrances except the main lobby and the east emergency exit. Put your best shooters in elevated positions with overlapping fields of fire. Rodriguez nodded. FBI teams are in position. But Colonel, we're security, not combat operators. Sarah almost smiled. Then it's a good thing I am. She walked to a supply closet, pulled out a maintenance panel. Behind it was a go bag she'd hidden 3 weeks ago, just in case. Inside was everything she might need. Tactical gear, weapons, equipment that definitely wasn't standard issue for hospital. ORDERLIES. Kelly watched her change. The transformation was complete. Sarah stripped away the pale blue scrubs. Underneath was the body of an athlete. Scars crisscrossed her skin, each one a story. Each one a mission. She pulled on tactical pants. Vest checked her weapons with practiced efficiency. When she was done, she looked like what she really was. A weapon honed. Deadly. Precise. Dr. Webb stared. You had that here the whole time? Preparation isn't paranoia, Doctor. It's survival, Sarah chambered around. How many patients are left in the building? A nurse checked her tablet. 42. Most are ambulatory. But we have 6 in ICU, on ventilators. They can't be moved quickly. Sarah's jaw tightened. Then we hold here. No matter what. Outside. The Russian team had split into 3 groups. 4 members each. Professional tactics. Sarah recognized the formation. Spetsnaz. Russian Special Forces. This wasn't a hit squad. This was a surgical strike team. They're not here to send a message, Sarah said quietly. They're here to finish a job. Brennan's face was grim. What happened in Syria, Sarah? What did you really stop? Sarah was quiet for a moment. A chemical weapon. New generation, undetectable. Deployed in a crowded city, it could kill 1 million people in hours. We destroyed the shipment. Killed the scientists who created it. Burned the lab to the ground. And they want revenge, Kelly said softly. They want to make sure I can't do it again. Sarah checked her earpiece. All units. This is Mitchell. Rules of engagement are simple. They're here to kill. Don't let them. Use of deadly force is authorized. Dr. Webb looked like he might be sick. You're going to have a gunfight in my hospital? I'm going to have a gunfight, so your hospital doesn't become a graveyard. Sarah's voice was hard. Now get to the safe room. That's an order, Webb started to protest. But something in Sarah's eyes made him stop. He'd spent his whole career dealing with life and death, but he'd never seen death like this. Death that walked on 2 legs and knew your name. The first Russian entered through the east emergency exit. He was dressed as a paramedic. Perfect disguise. He made it 3 steps before Agent Rodriguez stopped him. Credentials. The man smiled. reached for his pocket. Too slow, too deliberate. Rodriguez saw it coming. His hand moved to his weapon. But Sarah was faster. She stepped out from behind a corner. Weapon up. Steady. Don't, she said in Russian. I'd hate to ruin that nice uniform. The man's eyes widened. Recognition flashed across his face. Mitchell. You have 5 seconds to tell me who sent you, Sarah said. Still in Russian. Still calm. 4. 3. You're dead, Colonel. You just don't know it yet. 2. 1. The man went for his weapon. Sarah fired twice. Center mass, professional, clean, he dropped without a sound. She was already moving before he hit the ground. Checking corners, clearing angles. Contact east entrance, she said into her radio. 1 hostile down. Expect more. Kelly had taken shelter behind the nurse's station. She was shaking. She'd worked emergency medicine for 6 years. Seen gunshot wounds, stabbings, violence in all its forms. But watching Sarah Mitchell kill someone with surgical precision was different. Colder. More terrifying because Sarah didn't hesitate, didn't flinch. She moved like violence was just another language she spoke fluently. The second wave came fast. 3 Russians through the main lobby. They ditched the disguises. Full tactical gear now? They knew surprise was gone. This was going to be a fight. FBI agents opened fire. The lobby erupted into chaos. Bullets shattered windows, ricocheted off walls. 1 agent went down with a leg wound. Another took cover behind an overturned desk. Sarah moved through the chaos like a ghost. She'd done this before. Urban combat. Close quarters. The kind of fighting where hesitation meant death. She flanked the Russians. Caught them in a crossfire. 2 shots. 2 kills. The third turned toward her. Too late. She was already inside his range. Disarmed him. Put him down with a strike that probably fractured his skull. The lobby went quiet. Smoke hung in the air. The smell of cordite mixed with antiseptic. It was a smell Sarah knew too well. 6 down, she said into her radio. 6 to go. But the last 6 were the smart ones. They'd watched their teammates die, adjusted their tactics, and now they were doing something worse than attacking. They were positioning. General Brennan saw it first. Sarah, they're not trying to breach anymore. They're surrounding us. Sarah checked the monitors. Brennan was right. The remaining Russians had formed a perimeter around the hospital. Not to get in. To make sure no one got out. They're waiting for something, Sarah said. Back up. Heavy weapons. Something. Rodriguez cursed. We need to evacuate now. Before the explosion cut him off. It came from the north wing. Where the patients were being evacuated, the blast shook the building. Alarms screamed. Sprinkler systems activated. Water poured from the ceiling. Sarah was already running. North wing is compromised. I need medical teams there now. She rounded the corner. Smoke billowed from a collapsed doorway. Through the haze, she could see bodies, patients, nurses, some moving, some not. The Russians had used an explosive to cut off the evacuation route. Kelly appeared beside her. We need to get them out. Help me. Sarah started pulling debris away. Her hands bled. She didn't care. A patient was trapped underneath, elderly, unconscious. Sarah lifted a concrete slab that should have required 2 people. Pure adrenaline, pure will. The patient was alive. Barely. Kelly checked his vitals. Compound fracture. Possible internal bleeding. We need to get him to surgery. There is no surgery. Sarah's voice was cold. Not while those Russians are out there. Through the smoke, a figure appeared. Tall, broad. The leader of the Russian team. He held a detonator in his hand. Colonel Mitchell. Finally, face to face. Sarah stood slowly. Placed herself between him and the wounded patient. You're making a mistake. The only mistake was letting you live 3 years ago. His accent was thick. Moscow. That ends tonight. He raised the detonator. Sarah calculated her options. She could draw her weapon, maybe get a shot off. But he'd trigger the bomb first. The blast would collapse the entire wing. Kill everyone. She needed to buy time. What's your name? Volkov. Captain Yuri Volkov. And you killed my brother in Syria. Sarah's mind raced through faces. Missions. Targets. Syria was a blur of operations. But she remembered Volkov, scientist, working on the chemical weapon. She'd put 3 rounds in him personally. Your brother was going to kill millions, Sarah said quietly. I did what was necessary. So will I. Volkov's thumb moved toward the trigger. A shot rang out. Volkov stumbled. Blood bloomed on his shoulder. Kelly stood behind him, holding a service weapon she'd taken from a fallen FBI agent. Her hands shook, but her aim had been true. Volkov dropped the detonator. Sarah lunged forward, caught it before it hit the ground. Her heart pounded. That had been close. Too close, she looked at Kelly. Nice shot. Kelly's face was white. I've never shot anyone before. You've saved a lot of lives. Sarah secured the detonator. Zip-tied Volkov's hands. Rodriguez, I need a medical team and EOD up here. We've got wounded and a potential explosive device. But even as she said it, Sarah knew something was wrong. This had been too easy. Volkov was too experienced to make a mistake like that, to expose himself without backup. Then she heard it, the sound that changed everything. The distinctive hump of helicopter blades, but not a Black Hawk, something bigger, heavier, a Chinook. Transport capacity? Sarah ran to a window. Her blood went cold. The Chinook was landing on the hospital roof, and men were rappelling down. Lots of them. Russian special forces. More than a dozen. Full tactical gear. Heavy weapons. This wasn't an assassination attempt. This was an invasion, and Sarah Mitchell, former colonel in Joint Special Operations Command, was about to face the fight of her life. Sarah grabbed her radio. All units? Hostile air insertion on the roof? Multiple combatants. This is now a siege situation. Fall back to defensive positions. Protect the patients at all costs. General Brennan's voice came through. Sarah, we need to extract you now. Before they negative. I'm not leaving these people. Sarah checked her ammunition. 3 magazines left. Not enough. Not nearly enough. We hold until reinforcements arrive. Reinforcements are 20 minutes out. Then we hold for 20 minutes. Sarah turned to Kelly. Get every patient who can move to the basement. It's the most fortified part of the building. Use the service elevators. Go. Kelly nodded. She was terrified, but functioning. Sarah had seen that look before. Civilians finding courage they didn't know they had. What about you? I'm going to slow them down. Sarah moved through the hospital like a wraith. She knew this building intimately. Every corridor. Every stairwell. Every place to hide. Every place to kill. 3 weeks of mapping. Of preparation. It was about to pay off. The Russians were coming down from the roof. Tactical formation. Covering each other. Professional. But Sarah had home field advantage. She'd prepared for this. Maybe not Russians specifically. But for someone, eventually, she'd hidden supplies throughout the building. Weapons, caches, ammunition, first aid, escape routes, tools of her former trade. Because you could take the woman out of JSOC, but you couldn't take JSOC out of the woman. The first Russian team reached the 4th floor. 6 men. Heavy armor. Assault rifles. They moved with confidence. Too much confidence? Sarah watched them from a ventilation grate, counted their steps, timed their movements. The lead man passed beneath her. She dropped down behind him, silent, a ghost made flesh. Her knife found the gap in his armor. He went down without a sound. His teammates didn't notice for 3 more steps. By then, Sarah was gone. Already moving to the next position. The next ambush. This was her element. This was what she'd trained for. what she'd done in a dozen countries. Whose names would never appear in mission reports. The Russians realized they were down a man. Started shouting in Russian. Tightened formation. Got cautious. Good. Caution meant slow. Slow meant time. And time meant patience getting to safety. Sarah triggered her first trap. A fire extinguisher she'd rigged with a tripwire. It exploded in a cloud of chemical foam. Blinding. Choking. The Russians stumbled. Fired blindly. Bullets punched through walls. Shattered equipment. But Sarah was already 2 corridors away. She heard them on the radio. Angry, frustrated, they'd expected a quick hit. In and out. Now they were in a maze with a predator who knew every shadow. Agent Rodriguez found her on the 3rd floor. His face was grim. We've got casualties. 2 agents down. 1 civilian. They're pushing hard on the east stairwell. Sarah nodded. Fall back to the 2nd floor. Funnel them into the surgery wing. I've got a surprise waiting there. What kind of surprise? Sarah's smile was cold. The lethal kind. She'd spent 3 weeks preparing the surgery wing. It was the most defensible part of the hospital. Narrow corridors. Limited entry points. And she'd stocked it. With everything she might need for exactly this scenario, the Russians reached the surgery wing 10 minutes later. They'd lost 3 more men to Sarah's traps. Morale was dropping. She could hear it in their communications. Fear creeping into their voices. Because they'd come expecting to hunt a lone woman. Instead, they were being hunted. The lead Russian keyed his radio. This is Reaper 1. We need backup. Target is neutralized, but fortified. Multiple casualties. Request immediate? Sarah's bullet cut him off. She'd set up a sniper position in the surgical observation room. Elevated. Protected. Perfect sightlines. The Russian dropped. His team scattered. Took cover. Started laying down suppressive fire. But Sarah was already moving. She'd fired from one position. By the time they returned fire, she was shooting from another. It was a dance she'd perfected in places like Fallujah, Mogadishu, places where asymmetric warfare was the only kind that mattered. Kelly watched from the basement. The patients were terrified. The sound of gunfire echoed through the building like thunder. An elderly woman clutched Kelly's hand. Are we going to die? Kelly wanted to lie. Wanted to say everything would be fine. But she'd seen Sarah's face. Seen the calculation in her eyes. The truth was, they might die. All of them. That woman upstairs, Kelly said quietly. The one who used to mop our floors? She's keeping us alive. And if anyone can get us through this, it's her. Dr. Webb was in the basement too. He'd been silent for the past 30 minutes, processing. His entire worldview had shattered. The quiet orderly who'd served him coffee was now waging a one-woman war against Russian special forces. How did I not see it? He whispered. How did none of us see it? Because she didn't want us to. Kelly's voice was soft. That's the point. She was hiding. Living a normal life? Or trying to. And then we dragged her back into this. We didn't drag her anywhere. Those men came because she was here. Kelly's words were hard. True. Wherever she goes, violence follows. That's her curse. Upstairs, Sarah was running low on ammunition. She'd taken down 8 Russians, but more kept coming, and they'd adapted to her tactics. Started using drones, thermal imaging, coordinating better. She fell back to her final position. The hospital pharmacy. She'd fortified it, reinforced the doors, created murder holes for defensive fire. It was her Alamo. If they wanted her, they'd have to come through here. And she'd make them pay for every inch. General Brennan's voice crackled in her ear. Sarah, reinforcements are 5 minutes out. Can you hold? Sarah assessed her situation. 6 rounds left. Multiple wounds. Exhausted, but alive. I can hold. That's an order, Colonel. You hold. Sarah almost laughed. Yes, ma'am. The Russians massed outside the pharmacy. She could hear them preparing. Breaching charges, flashbangs, They were done playing. This was the final push. They'd overwhelm her with numbers, with firepower. It was a sound strategy. Sarah took a deep breath, made peace with what was coming. She'd had a good run. 2 years of quiet, of normal, of pretending to be just another face in the crowd. But normal was never meant for people like her. The door exploded inward. Smoke filled the room. Sarah fired through it. Controlled bursts, making every shot count. Russians fell, but more kept coming. They were inside now, close quarters. The kind of fighting where skill mattered less than luck. A Russian's rifle butt caught Sarah in the ribs. She went down. Her weapon skittered away. The Russian stood over her. Raised his weapon. "It's over, Colonel." Sarah looked up at him. Blood on her face. Defiance in her eyes. "For you, maybe." She swept his legs. Grabbed his weapon. Used it to block another attacker. She was fighting on pure instinct now. No strategy. No tactics. Just survival. The most primal kind. Another Russian went down. Then another. But there were too many. Sarah knew it. They knew it. This was the end. And then the cavalry arrived. The windows shattered inward. Black shapes dropped through on rappel lines. Delta Force operators. The most elite soldiers America produced. They hit the Russians like a hammer. Precise. Overwhelming. Merciless. The fight was over in seconds. The Russians who weren't killed immediately dropped their weapons. Surrendered. They'd been beaten, outclassed. By operators who made them look like amateurs. Sarah slumped against the wall. Her body finally acknowledging the pain. The exhaustion. The cost of holding the line. A Delta operator approached her. Offered his hand. She took it. Let him pull her up. "Colonel Mitchell," he said. "Commander sends his regards." Sarah nodded. Couldn't speak. The adrenaline was wearing off. Reality crashing in. She'd survived again. But the cost was written in the bodies on the floor. In the shattered building. In the terrified patients downstairs, General Brennan appeared in the doorway. Surveyed the carnage. Looked at Sarah. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then Brennan nodded. "Well done, Colonel." Sarah wanted to say something. Wanted to explain, justify, but the words wouldn't come. She just nodded back. Kelly came upstairs, saw the aftermath. Saw Sarah standing there, covered in blood, barely upright. Kelly ran to her. Checked her for injuries. Professional, even in shock. "You're hurt," Kelly said. "You need medical attention." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're bleeding. You probably have broken ribs." "You need," I said, "I'm fine." Sarah's voice was harder than she meant it to be. She softened it. "Thank you. But I'm okay." Kelly stepped back. Saw the distance in Sarah's eyes. The wall going back up. The mask returning. And Kelly understood something sad. Sarah Mitchell would never be okay. Not really. This life. This violence. It was all she knew. Dr. Webb appeared. His face was pale, shaken. "Patients are safe. All of them. Because of you." Sarah nodded. But there was no pride in her eyes. Just exhaustion. Just the weight of another mission. Another night of violence. Another reminder that normal was a lie she told herself. Outside, sirens wailed. More federal vehicles. Media trucks. The story was breaking. Former Special Operations Colonel holds off Russian assault team. Saves entire hospital. It would be on every news channel by morning. Sarah's cover wasn't just blown. It was obliterated. The quiet life she'd tried to build was over again. And somewhere, in the back of her mind, she wondered if it had ever really begun. But the night wasn't over yet. Because as the FBI secured the scene, as Delta Force operators swept the building, something was happening that would change everything one more time. A convoy was approaching. Black SUVs. Government plates. But not Defense Department. Not FBI. Something else. Something bigger, and in the lead vehicle was someone Sarah Mitchell hadn't seen in 3 years. Someone she'd hoped never to see again. The person who could answer the one question that had been burning in her mind all night, who betrayed her location to the Russians. The convoy stopped in front of the hospital. Sarah watched through a broken window. She recognized the formation. The security protocols. This wasn't standard procedure. This was someone important. Very important. The rear door of the lead SUV opened. A man stepped out. 60s, gray hair. 3 stars on his collar. Lieutenant General James Morrison, Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. The man who'd personally recruited Sarah into JSOC 15 years ago? Sarah's jaw tightened. Morrison's presence here meant 2 things. First, this situation was even bigger than she'd thought. Second, answers were coming. Whether she wanted them or not, Morrison walked through the debris-strewn emergency entrance. FBI agents parted for him. Delta operators nodded respectfully. He carried the kind of authority that made rooms go silent. When his eyes found Sarah, his expression was unreadable. "Colonel Mitchell," he said, "walk with me." It wasn't a request. Sarah followed him outside. Away from the others, away from the chaos. The night air was cold. The smell of smoke hung heavy. In the distance, more sirens approached. The cleanup would take days. The investigation, months. Morrison stopped near an ambulance. Turned to face her. 3 years, Sarah. 3 years you stayed hidden. And in one night, your front page news? They came for me, sir. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. Morrison's voice was hard. Then it softened slightly. But you made the right one. Those patients would be dead without you. Sarah waited. She knew Morrison. He didn't come personally for a debrief. There was more. Something worse. Morrison pulled out a tablet. Showed her a photograph. A man. 50s suit. Sarah recognized him immediately. Deputy Director Raymond Cross, CIA. She'd worked with him on several joint operations. Cross is the leak, Morrison said quietly. He's been selling intelligence to the Russians for 2 years. Your location. Operation details. Names of deep cover operatives. He's responsible for at least 6 deaths that we know of. Sarah felt cold. Cross had been at her retirement ceremony, had shaken her hand, thanked her for her service, and all the while, he'd been planning to sell her out. Where is he now? Dead. Killed himself when FBI came to arrest him 2 hours ago. But before he died, he sent one last message. To his Russian handlers, confirming you were at Memorial Hospital. That's why they came tonight. Sarah closed her eyes. 6 deaths. Because of one traitor. Because greed mattered more than honor. More than duty. More than the lives of people who'd sworn to protect their country. There's more, Morrison said. Cross wasn't working alone. He had help inside the Department of Defense. Someone with access to the most classified databases. Someone who helped him identify and locate deep cover operatives. Who? Morrison was quiet for a long moment. We don't know yet. But Sarah, every operative Cross compromised is now at risk. We're doing emergency extractions worldwide, relocations, new identities. It's the biggest security breach since Aldrich Ames. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. Dozens of operatives. Years of work. Missions compromised. Lives destroyed. All because 2 men decided money was worth more than loyalty. What do you need from me? Sarah asked. I need you to come back. Morrison's voice was direct. Not 2 operations. We both know those days are over. But we need your expertise. Your knowledge. You worked with Cross. You knew him. Help us find his accomplice. Help us clean up this mess. Sarah looked at the hospital. Saw Kelly standing in the doorway, watching, worried. Sarah had spent 2 years trying to be normal. To be someone who mattered in small ways. Making coffee. Mopping floors. Helping people heal. But normal wasn't her life. Maybe it never had been. Maybe people like her didn't get to be normal, they got to be necessary. They got to be weapons that protected the innocents. But they didn't get to be innocent themselves. I'll help, Sarah said quietly. But after we find the accomplice, I'm done. Really done. No more missions. No more cover identities. I want out. Permanently. Morrison nodded. You've earned it. God knows you've earned it. Find me the traitor, and I'll personally sign your discharge papers. They shook hands. A gesture that carried weight. History. Respect between warriors. Then Morrison returned to his convoy. Sarah walked back into the hospital. Kelly met her halfway. Are you leaving? Kelly asked. She already knew the answer. Eventually. But not yet. Sarah managed a small smile. There's still work to do. Will I see you again? Sarah wanted to lie. Wanted to say yes. But she'd spent 2 years lying. To Kelly, to Dr. Webb, to everyone in this hospital. She was tired of it. Probably not. It's safer that way. For both of us. Kelly nodded. Blinked back tears. For what it's worth, you were the best orderly we ever had. I made terrible coffee, yeah, you really did. Kelly laughed through the tears. Then she hugged Sarah. Hard. Desperate. The hug of someone saying goodbye to a friend they'd never really known. Be safe. Wherever you go, I'll try. Dr. Webb approached as Kelly walked away. He looked older than he had that morning. Like the last few hours had aged him years. Colonel Mitchell, I owe you an apology. For what? For treating you like you were invisible? Like you didn't matter. Webb's voice was thick with emotion. You saved my life tonight. Saved all our lives. And I never even knew your real name. You knew the name I wanted you to know, Sarah said. That's enough. Is it? Is it really enough? Webb shook his head. I'm a doctor. I'm supposed to see people. Really see them? And I completely missed who you were. Good. Sarah's voice was kind. That means I did my job right. Webb extended his hand. Sarah took it. They shook, a different kind of respect passing between them. Not military to military, but human to human. Two people who'd survived something terrible together. General Brennan found Sarah an hour later. The hospital was mostly empty now. Patients transferred. Evidence collected. The wounded treated. Only cleanup crews remained, and federal agents securing the scene. The media wants a statement, Brennan said. They're calling you a hero. The nurse who saved a hospital. I'm not a nurse, and I'm not a hero. Sarah's voice was flat. I'm just someone who did what needed to be done. That's what heroes are, Sarah. People who do what needs to be done, even when it costs them everything. Sarah looked at the hospital. Broken windows, bullet holes, scorch marks. The building would recover. It would be rebuilt, repaired. But Sarah wondered if she ever would. If people like her ever really healed, or if they just got better at hiding the scars. What happens now? Sarah asked. Now, you disappear again? New identity, new location, until we catch the second traitor. Then, Brennan trailed off. Then what? Then, you get to decide. Stay in the shadows, or step into the light. It's your choice. Sarah thought about that. 2 years in the shadows had been peaceful, quiet, but tonight had reminded her of something she'd tried to forget. She was good at violence. Better than she was at being normal? And maybe that was okay. Maybe the world needed people who were good at violence. To protect the people who weren't. I'll let you know, Sarah said. Brennan nodded. Started to leave, then stopped. Turned back. Sarah, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're alive. The world's a better place with you in it. Even if that world has more bullet holes because of me, especially then, because the bullets went through bad people, not innocent ones. Brennan left. Sarah stood alone in the ruined emergency ward, the place where she'd spent 3 weeks trying to be someone else. Trying to be smaller, quieter, less dangerous, but danger had found her anyway. It always did. Kelly appeared one last time. She handed Sarah a piece of paper. My phone number. In case you ever want coffee. Real coffee. Not the terrible stuff you made. Sarah took the paper. Looked at it. Knew she'd never call. Knew Kelly probably knew that too. But the gesture mattered. The connection. However brief. However impossible. Thank you, Sarah said. For everything. Thank you for keeping us alive. Kelly smiled, sad knowing in Sarah. Wherever you go next, I hope you find peace. Sarah wanted to say something profound, something meaningful. But all she could manage was, me too. She walked out of Memorial Hospital for the last time. The sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. A new day beginning. A new life waiting. Somewhere a black SUV waited at the curb. Sarah climbed in. Didn't look back. Looking back meant remembering. And remembering hurt too much. The SUV pulled away. Merged into traffic. Disappeared. Behind her, Kelly watched from the hospital entrance. Next to her, Dr. Webb stood silent. They'd both been changed by tonight. Both been touched by something bigger than themselves. By a woman who'd been so much more than she seemed. Do you think she'd be okay? Webb asked. Todd Kelly thought about Sarah's eyes. The weight in them. The burden of all the things she'd done. All the things she'd had to become. No. I don't think people like her ever get to be okay. But maybe that's the price. For keeping the rest of us safe, they went back inside. Back to the work of healing. Of saving lives. Of being the kind of heroes who got to wear their badges in the light. While Sarah Mitchell, Colonel, JSOC, retired, disappeared back into the shadows where warriors like her belonged. The story would hit the news that afternoon. Former Special Operations Colonel saves hospital from Russian assault team. The details would be redacted. The full truth classified. But the core would remain. A hero had been hiding in plain sight. And when the moment came, she'd stepped forward. Done the impossible. Saved countless lives. Dr. Marcus Webb would tell the story for years. In lectures. In interviews. About the orderly who'd served him coffee, who he'd never bothered to really see. Who'd turned out to be one of the most decorated soldiers in American history. It would humble him, change him, make him a better doctor, a better person. Kelly Chen would carry Sarah's number in her wallet until the paper wore thin. Would sometimes wonder where Sarah was. What name she used now? If she was safe. If she was happy? If people like her could ever be happy. Kelly would never call the number. But knowing it was there brought comfort. A connection to something extraordinary. And Sarah Mitchell. She would continue. New name, new face. New life. Working in the shadows to catch the traitor who'd betrayed her and so many others. And after that, maybe she'd find peace. Maybe she'd find purpose. Or maybe she'd just find another place to hide until violence found her again. Because that's what warriors do. They fight. They protect. They sacrifice. And sometimes they mop floors in hospitals. Waiting. Watching. Ready. Always ready. The silent badge in her pocket proved that. A badge with a rank no one could see. A rank earned in blood and shadows. A rank that meant something even when no one knew it existed. Colonel Sarah Mitchell, JSOC, retired, but never truly gone. Because the world needed people like her. People who could step into the darkness so others could stay in the light. That was her burden, her duty, her curse, and perhaps, in the end, her redemption. The SUV drove on, into the sunrise, into the unknown, into whatever came next. And somewhere in a hospital that would never forget her, two people stood and watched the dawn, grateful, changed, forever touched by the woman who'd been invisible until she wasn't.